And welcome back, everybody. It is the Catholic Convert Show, and we're here on Wednesday, June the 12th, counting down the days as we're getting closer to those really miserable months. I think I've changed clothes 3 times today just from sweating, and all I did was walk around and feed my chickens. Ed, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay. I didn't feed any chickens today, but my neighbors have chickens, and I hear them all the time. You sometimes probably hear them in the background when we're talking here, when I've got the windows open. But
Funny
the
enough,
last
I
two
never
places I've
do.
lived in, the neighbors have had chickens. Yeah, the last 2 places I've lived in, the neighbors had chickens. It's becoming very popular around here.
Yeah, I didn't start uh, owning chickens until when the egg prices started flying to the ceiling. What was it, 2-3 years ago? And I was like, you
Yeah.
know what, it's time to buy some chickens. And it's got to the point where I have to give away like 6 dozen eggs twice a week because I've got so many chickens.
Yikes.
And like when you're getting
It's a
like
lot of
30
chickens.
when you get like 30 eggs a day, and I've also got 6 ducks. So then when you're getting
Wow.
3 duck eggs a day on top of that, it's like, I hope y'all like breakfast because I'm giving it away to everybody. A couple of
My
years ago,
goodness.
that it made me the richest man on the street having all those eggs.
Yeah. Black market chicken eggs, right?
Oh yeah, I had so many people wanting to buy them. I'm like, I will pay you to take them. I've got too many. I'm
Oh,
running out of cartons. I'm running out of room. Like, just come and get them, please.
my
Oh,
goodness.
but this past couple of weeks, the episodes have been very positive, cheery, because it's been I guess you could call it a season of slow news days for the past couple of weeks. But unfortunately, that's not what we have today.
Oh
So,
boy.
in what was once known as the great state of Massachusetts, the state has launched, and this is taxpayer funded, by the way. So I'm pretty sure the residents of Massachusetts really love this. The first in the nation effort to target pregnancy resource centers. So the Massachusetts state government this week announced that it it's basically billed as an effort to discredit and steer pregnant women away from pregnancy resource centers in the state. The state's Department of Public Health said in a press release on Monday that it was launching what it described as an education campaign to highlight the dangers and potential harm of crisis pregnancy centers. Those pregnancy centers that offer free resources to pregnant women who don't want to kill their children. Yeah, very dangerous individuals and organizations, those. Now, again, they offer aid and support to pregnant women, particularly women in desperate situations. And some of them may end up there considering abortions. Now, the pro abortion advocates have regularly criticized these centers for what they claim are misleading tactics that steer women away from having abortions. And they've been misleading women about their options if they are pregnant to dissuade them from seeking out abortions. And the government's campaign will amplify how anti abortion centers provide misinformation about abortion services to prevent people from making an informed choice about their care. So, wasn't there a verse in Isaiah where we were all warned about, they're going to call good evil and evil good? I believe it was in Isaiah. But so right now, we have a state government using taxpayer dollars to discredit pregnancy centers, which provide aid, support, healthcare for pregnant women, because too many people are going there, apparently, instead of to abortion clinics. Or maybe they've had people who were considering abortion later change their minds and decide to keep their child. And of course, the state government hops in and says, "Oh, we can't have that." And it's angering and it's mind-boggling at the same time. How did we get to a point where the government is using tax dollars? And thank God I don't live in Massachusetts, and I feel bad for the people that do, but where the government is using taxpayer dollars to discredit crisis pregnancy centers because they would rather these young women go and seek out abortions than go to an organization or a clinic where they hear that, well, here are your options. You can get an abortion. You can keep the baby. You can give the baby up for adoption. And those are literally the only three options. I don't understand why the state has to get involved to discredit care providers for pregnant women simply because they persuade women there to keep their children. It's not even hidden anymore. This is a blatant and open advocation for the perpetuation of a culture of death and killing innocent children. It blows my mind. I will say if I have if I have anybody listening to me right now that is in Massachusetts, you need to start heavily petitioning all of your elected officials because thankfully I read also that this is going to be taken up for a fight in court. But I mean, come on. We're at that point now where we're in those times that we were warned about where they call good evil, they call evil good, and then they're going to start condemning the people that still call good good and evil evil as evil. You know, we get that all the time as Catholics. We're told that we are evil and we hate women and all this other crap. But ironically, in the same breath, we get told, "Oh, you worship a woman. Well, why do you revere Mary so much?" Well, which is it? Are we misogynists and do we hate women, or are we glorifying a woman too much? You can't make up your own minds about which bathroom to use. So, of course, you can't make up your own minds about what Catholics are doing since you have zero clue about what Catholics believe. So, there's that. But seriously, how do we get to the point where the state government is using taxpayer dollars regardless? I mean, obviously, it's always been that way. Your taxes go to whatever the government wants it to go to, whether the populace, wants it or not. The government goes, "Oh, we know better than you." Now the government is trying to say, at least in the state government in the state of Massachusetts, is trying to say that they know better than everyone else when it comes to whether or not someone should have an abortion. We cannot have pro-life healthcare providers for women telling people that they should not get abortions. They're not even pro-choice anymore. They're anti-pregnancy. They're they're pro-abortion. They're not pro-choice. They claim to be pro-choice as long as that choice is abortion. And they don't want anybody out there even having the remotest of possibilities of choosing life. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's funny because you're talking about a state government using taxpayer money on ridiculous things. And I'm going to say, stop the presses. This is something brand new.
Oh yeah, I remember the $55,000 for a hammer, $20,000 for a toilet seat. I remember all of that.
Yeah, but well, you're talking about Massachusetts. Well, first of all, the verse you're talking about, you're right, Isaiah. It's chapter 5, verse 20. But you've got Elizabeth Warren up there in Massachusetts, their senator, and I mean, she is the most staunchly pro-abortion senator I may have ever seen. And I mean, I remember reading articles about this. She's been on this riding this pony for a long time, and she doesn't want to like sanction those pregnancy centers or have them change the way they present themselves. She wants them shut down. She does not want them to even exist, which is, from a Catholic perspective, especially very frightening. That they want you. You mentioned that if you're pregnant, there's abortion, there's have your child, or there's give your child up for adoption. I mean, I would. It seems to me a lot of these politicians want one choice for a pregnant woman, and that is abortion, only abortion. And it strikes me funny that they accuse these pregnancy centers of lying, just simply because they say, "Oh, there's an option. You don't have to abort." I, I mean, is there really a woman alive that doesn't know that you can either abort your child or give your child up for adoption or keep your child? Is it really, how could they possibly being lied to? But there are lies being told from the far left when they say that while you're pregnant, until you give birth, that's not a human inside of you. That's not a viable creature inside of you. It's a parasite. It's a clump of cells. It's something that needs to be removed. I mean, that's where the lies are coming from, not from the pregnancy center across the street that just says, "Hey, there's another option. You don't have to kill your unborn child." Uh, it's amazing to me. I mean, this attack that has taken place over the last few years on these pregnancy centers, and it's evil. I mean, you hear people refer to abortion as uh, the sacrament of the left, and I would agree with that. It seems to me that
Oh, it
is their sacrament.
absolutely is.
You know, yeah, and they just the child sacrifice is their sacrament, and it's disturbing. It's upsetting, and I don't. I mean, I feel like the tide is turning somewhat as far as some of these issues, and something because I think the one mistake that the far left made was changing their platform to uh, primarily hold very extreme views on things such as abortion and things of that nature. And I think that has done them some service because people are realizing that these are extreme positions to hold. And certainly abortion will be at the top of the list, where it's basically, if you're pregnant, that's kind of like a disease that needs to be treated, and the treatment is abortion. It's upsetting.
Here's what I find a little ironic. If I'm not mistaken, and if I am, somebody can comment on this and let me know. But if I'm not mistaken, in the state of Massachusetts, if someone murders a pregnant woman, they are charged with a double homicide. They're charged with the murder of the pregnant woman and the infanticide, which is still murder, of the unborn child. Then, in the same breath, they want to turn around and say that an unborn child is not a human. Well, you can't murder something that's not human, right? You don't get called a murderer because you killed a dog or a cat or a cow. If it's not human, then why is the criminal justice system counting it as human when someone, an attacker, a violent criminal, kills a pregnant woman? Why are they charged twice? You can't have it both
Yeah.
ways. And
Oh,
I'll tell you why they try to have it both ways, because they are
mhm.
clowns. They are low IQ, zero morality clowns. They've got nothing to show for themselves except a series of depraved and debaucherous behavior in their own pasts. And so they want to turn around and try to nullify any and every sense of morality that anyone could possibly start to fathom. They go, oh, no, no, no. Let's do the most depraved and debaucherous things that we possibly can. Let's celebrate them. Let's even enforce it that this is a good and moral thing to do. And then we'll condemn anyone who disagrees with it. I'm sorry. And I'll go ahead and, before I end this mini rant, I'll say this. Every single thing that I say on any of these episodes, anything I say in my newsletter, anything on my social media feeds are 100% my opinions that I doubly endorse. So I just want to let anybody know that if you have a problem with anything that I just said, I meant every word of it 3 times.
But that would be triply, not doubly then. I'm just saying.
That's fine. I decided to elevate it as it went further.
You ramped it up right there. Exactly.
You know what? Better than 2.
That you
Let's
have
go
to
3.
defend what you're saying when what you're saying. Let's go through. The fact that you have to defend what you're saying when what you're saying should just be common sense, common knowledge, should just make sense to anyone that hears it. I mean, it's a strange time that we are living in. It's a very strange time.
It is. And as angry as it makes me to think about what they're trying to do for these people, excuse me, due to these people who are just trying to help pregnant women, whether they're married or unmarried, whether they're wanting to keep the child, wanting to give the child up for adoption, but providing them with resources and aid to help them while maintaining the sanctity of life. I just want everyone who is on that side of these evil and vile people that while you're doing that, we are getting closer and closer and closer in the great state of South Carolina to completely abolishing abortion. There are only 3 clinics in the entire state of 6. Well, I think it's what, 66 million people. I think we're getting closer and closer and closer to it being 2, and then it'll be 1. And once we're done here, that is going to spread state to state to state, and we will help set the precedent and help enforce it. Sorry to tell you, but your efforts are futile because we already have the spoilers for how it all ends. We win in the end because we are on the side of God.
Well, there you go. If God is for us, who can be against us? Right?
Losers.
Well, that wasn't part of the original quote from Paul, but we'll put it in there.
Look, if there's a clear winner, there has to be clear losers.
Yes, yeah, I guess. It's interesting. There have been a number of states in the last several years that have limited or gotten rid of abortion. It's good to see. It's surprising to see, but it's a very good surprise. But at the same token, it seems that the states that are very, very, very much on the abortion bandwagon have, if anything, done things to make it easier to obtain an abortion. Even you got places like California where the governor there, Newsom, says, "Hey, if your state's restricting abortion, we'll pay for you to come here. We'll pay for your abortion. We'll pay for you to spend a couple nights in a hotel while you recover." I mean, it's insanity. Places like that. And obviously, everyone knows I live in Jersey. We have very ridiculously liberal government here, and the law in New Jersey is, if people will say, "Oh, what are you talking about abortion till birth? There's no such a thing." New Jersey allows abortion up till birth, which is another level of insanity as far as I'm concerned. New York State, right above me, same thing. There are no restrictions on abortion whatsoever. It has mine. So it's a shame that while some states are really reeling back on the abortions and doing what they can to limit the number of abortions, there are at the same time states that are ramping up their efforts to increase the availability of abortion. Um, so
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
I
something.
actually,
It's something.
I think it was yesterday I saw something come across the news, and I don't know why it was tied to my local news, but apparently I believe it was Kansas. The Planned Parenthood organization there is getting ready to face a massive lawsuit. And again, I might be wrong about the state, but I want to say it's Kansas. Um, Apparently, students in high schools, young women who would say, "Hey, I'm pregnant," they would contact Planned Parenthood, which would then facilitate picking up the child, again, the child from school, and then transporting them to abortion clinics,
Mm,
performing the abortion, and then transporting them back to school without knowledge or consent of the parents. And I believe there was video of the entire thing being talked about by staff at the Planned Parenthood in question. And look,
mm.
I know we are supposed to pray for our enemies, and I try to very, very hard, but I will never cease to rejoice at the destruction of all things evil. Will I pray for their souls? Absolutely, because I only want the kingdom of God expanded. But I will rejoice every time I see evil take a damning blow. And I really hope that something, a prejudicial judgment comes down upon them from the legal system that damages them beyond repair as far as Planned Parenthood as an organization goes. Could you
Yeah, that
imagine
would be
someone
okay.
taking your daughter out of school to have a medical procedure against your knowledge and or consent? That is kidnapping.
It, it's it's crazy. It's crazy, But and then, but at the same time, if you were to give a kid if a kid goes to the nurse and says they have a headache, you give me an Advil. There's 27 pages of forms that need to be filled out. There's phone calls that need to be made to the parents. All this for a kid to get an Advil, but yeah, you can take them and get an abortion. It's crazy. I don't know what's
You
going
can
on,
take them out of school and
but
not
you
even
know,
be their parent to
yeah,
go have an invasive
but
medical procedure, but the school nurse can't give them an Advil.
yeah. Planned Parenthood is pure evil. I think most people are aware
Well,
of that.
everybody
Some
knows
people,
how Planned Parenthood began, right? It was
yeah, with
started by
money
someone who
thing.
was a well, it was started by someone who was a staunch believer in eugenics and sought to, greatly diminish the growth of the Black community. It was
Yeah,
targeted towards African American women who were pregnant. Come and kill your kid. And it was
yeah,
strictly because of a case of eugenics.
yeah, yeah. And listen, and let's not kid ourselves. The goal is still the same. I mean, they've expanded their reach a little bit, but the vast majority of Planned Parenthoods are smack dab in the middle of minority neighborhoods. They're still doing the same thing. They're you know I know that in New York City, they're now approaching 60% of all pregnancies of Black women end in abortion. That's that's crazy to me.
And it's
But yet,
absolutely
guys like
horrible.
you and me would be considered racists for trying to abolish abortion. It's of course it is, yeah. And but Planned Parenthood, they're so smart. I mean, they know where they make their money. They know where they get their money. It's through abortion. And so they've aligned themselves, at least in the area where I live, they've aligned themselves with elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. There are some high schools that actually have Planned Parenthood representatives in the school. They have them come in and give talks about where to go and what to do if you find yourself at 15 and pregnant. They sponsor events through our local chapters of the Girl Scouts. That's why I won't buy Girl Scout cookies anymore, because around in this area, they're Planned Parenthood is investing heavily into Girl Scouts, and they will have Planned Parenthood representatives come and talk to the Girl Scouts about about pregnancy ending and birth control and things like that. It's amazing, but they get a hold of them at a young age and convince them.
And
That's why you see
that makes me
interviews.
so glad that I homeschool. It makes me
Oh
so
yeah.
glad that my wife and I decided to homeschool, because I'll tell you something. I notice a significant difference. My daughter is about to be 12, right? When she's around other girls that are her age, you can see a huge gap between them and my daughter, as far as the way these girls that are her, I will say, semi peers, 99% of her peers are all children of my wife and I's friends who all attend our parish, because my daughter goes to her catechism classes with them. Now, when I see her interacting with other young girls that are her age, 11, 12, you know, probably not 13, but let's say 10, 11, 12, in that 3-year age range. And I see the way my daughter behaves. I see the way she carries herself. I see the way she looks at these other girls as if they're some kind of alien creature, because these girls are talking about things that are far too inappropriate for a young girl their age. And they're talking about things and concepts that I would expect from a teenage 16, 17, 18-year-old, maybe even a 15-year-old. But then I look at my 15-year-old son. All of his peers are his fellow altar servers. We've got 52 altar servers at our parish, and some of them are adults, but I don't think we have like adult altar servers at my parish, because I've seen some altar servers in some parishes that are like in their 30s, 40s, 50s. But when I say adult, but not quite adult, I'm talking like they're 20 to 23 years old, because they're seminarians or they're in formation for the seminary, things like that. But all of his peers are all altar servers and people that go to our parish, because we're so active in our parish. I mean, we're there 3-4 times a week, so it's no, and we still homeschool him, and he's online with them, hanging out with them, talking. Whenever I go to the church to help, like, hey, when we had to do the nativity scene, we've got the world's largest nativity scene, and me and 5 other guys are carrying a 1,200-pound camel through the church, and we're setting it up. He's hanging out with their sons, who are his peers and friends. But my daughter, 11 years old, going to be 12 this year, she acts the way that 12-year-olds acted when I was a kid. Most of the 12 and 13-year-old girls, not the ones that attend our parish, but the ones that, she knows from, whether they're like in the neighborhood or whatever, she looks at them like they're aliens, because these girls are acting like they're 19, 20, trying to overly dress themselves to look way older than they are. And when I say overly, that's an oxymoron. And I'm so thankful that my children are not subjected to that absolute garbage that you see going on in public schools. It's absolute garbage. I want, and they go, well, when you homeschool your kids, they're not going to fit in with society. I'm sorry. That's the entire point. I do not want my kids to mesh well with a depraved and immoral society. I want them to stand above them. And I'm so grateful that my
Yeah.
kids are the way they are, that my wife and I decided to homeschool. And I I can't even imagine the absolute stress level that I would have as a parent if I saw my children behaving the way that a lot of these others behave, and the crap that they're
Yeah.
subjected to and exposed to in public school. Like, unless I
Yeah.
just didn't care, which I'm assuming a lot of these parents are, I would be so stressed out. I would be ready to homeschool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it's nonstop. You've got to, even with the homeschooling, you've got to be cognizant of what your kids are seeing on TV, what they're reading. I remember a couple of years ago being horrified because there was an issue of Teen Vogue. So it's Vogue magazine, but it's geared towards like 11, 12, up to about 19-year-old girls, and they had this cover article, uh, 10 great gifts to get your friend after an abortion. This is a magazine for children, basically. And it was 10 great gifts to get your friend after an abortion. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I made sure to read it because, you have to be, as a parent, especially, you have to be aware of what's out there and what's going on. And it was stuff like, buy them really, really sexy, uh, pair of undies because they're going to feel down about their body and the shape that it's in right now. And it was just this bizarre stuff. Take them out to a movie and pay for the ticket and buy them popcorn and things like that. It was insanity. I mean, but it was a celebration of teen abortion, not even teen pregnancy, but teen abortion from a major publication. Um, and I mean, if you're a parent and your child has a subscription to that, if that came into my house, obviously my daughter is pushing 30 years old, but if back then, if an issue of a magazine came to the house that it was talking to my daughter about how cool it is to get an abortion, that'd be the last issue of that piece of crap that came into the house. But I think today I think a lot of parents don't really pay attention to that. And I also think that some parents would be okay with their kids reading that crap. It's a different world than it was when I was growing up, or even when my kids were growing up. My kids aren't that old. My daughter's 29 and my son is 26. And I feel like things have changed drastically in the 10 years or so since they were teenagers. It's I don't even know what to say, and it continues on. So they're fed all this stuff from the time they're children, and that's why you see like these man on street interviews with college kids, and they'll ask them about pregnancy and abortion and things like that, and you'll hear the same answers come back. It's not really human. It's a clump of cells. It's not a person until it comes out. All this kind of nonsense, and you're thinking you're at a major university. You've had some sort of biology class. I have to say, my brother, who has had many different careers in his life and is now, but for a while there, he was teaching at a community college, and he was teaching biology classes. And he would say to his class before, when they were talking about reproduction, he would say, "Listen, you may not like what I'm about to say, and you can report me to the administration if you'd like. But I'm going to speak truthfully, and I'm going to answer your questions truthfully when it comes to reproduction. Is that a human being that you're carrying when you're pregnant? Is it Yes? Is it human from is it a person from the time of conception? Yes. And he'd go on, stating not, and you can say, oh, he was stating his religious beliefs. Well, no, in this case, it just happens that his religious beliefs
So we're stating
align with actual
biological
biology
fact.
and with actual science. Exactly. He would do that. And he would, oh my gosh, afterwards, he would have so many kids come up to him and complain, Mr. I know that that's not right. I know that that's wrong. I was taught in high school that it's only this and it's only that, and it's not a human until it comes out and all this stuff. And he's like, well, listen, I, you're going to believe whatever you want. I'm showing you. Here's the textbook we use for this class. Here's what it says. If you want to believe otherwise, that's on you. But
But
it's
if you
amazing.
want to
It's
believe
it's a,
otherwise, you can go on being intentionally delusional. Well, my dad said, or my mom said, well, then your mom and dad are idiots, and they're raising another little
there
idiot.
you go.
If that is that not so charitable to say, I'm sorry, it's true. If you're raising your children to believe that life does not begin at conception, then you're an idiot and you're raising idiot children. And so you can complain about how bad the kids are. Well, who's raising them?
Yeah. I I think, see, when I was growing up, probably when you were growing up, your parents taught you not what was convenient, not what was going to make their life easier. They just taught you what was true. Like it or not, here's what the truth is, buddy boy, and that's it. And today it's more
That's
of,
dude.
what can I
That was
teach
the
my kids
greatest
that's going to
thing
make
ever,
their life
too.
easier? Yeah,
That was the greatest thing ever.
absolutely it was. Listen, there were a lot of times my mom or my dad sat. Yeah, there were a lot of times where my mom or my dad would sit me down and have to straighten me out about a particular subject. There were times that I really didn't want to hear what they had to say, but that didn't matter. They were going to speak the truth. If I didn't want to hear it, oh well. When you're adult, when you're out of this house, you believe whatever you want. You live any way you want. But as far as the old thing, as long as you're under my roof, young man, you'll live by my rules. And it was true. And I thank God that my parents were that way. That because they did convey truth to me. They didn't convey convenience to me. They didn't say, well, here's what's going to make your life easy. Here's what, if you believe this, you're going to have a great life. No, they just said, these are the truths of life. You can accept them, you can deny them. That's entirely up to you. But we're going to tell you what the truth is. End of story. We need to get back to that. We really need to. And of course, you run into the other difficulties that go along with this. Is that how many kids are growing up in a single parent home? How many kids are growing up where there's only one parent, and that parent is working two or three jobs and has absolutely no time to explain truth to them, and they're kind of on their own. Or what's even worse is that so many kids are being raised basically by the public school system, a public school system that has run amok, a public school system that is full of the wildest people I've ever seen in my life. You see it all the time. You've seen it on Twitter. Some of these people that post videos about what they teach in their classroom, and you're shocked, and you're like, how is this going on today? How is this being allowed to
Yeah,
happen?
as soon as I
But
see
they're being
that, the first thing that pops into my head is we really went wrong when we closed down state-ran mental institutions or even the private ran mental institutions. That's
either
when
one.
things started going wrong because you know what? Perhaps lobotomies for these people is not such a bad idea. But no,
Bring back
look,
lobotomies.
when that's the message of the day, bring back lobotomies. No, listen, when I was a kid, and I'm thankful that it turned out this way, I had exactly what you were describing. Whenever I'll be like, well, why isn't it this way? I didn't get a great explanation. It was because that's how life works. If you don't like it, too bad. You're going to have a really terrible time with it, but that's reality. And to deny it just means you're going to suffer. So suck it up, Buttercup, and get used to it. And that was when I complained about anything. Well, why do they take taxes out of my first check, or anything, right? Why do I have to apply myself and actually develop good habits? Whatever. And I'll tell you what, I'm so glad that I have so many children that I do, because you know how it is when you've got like one, two children, you can say, especially if they're close in age, you you could be like, stop thinking you know everything. I know more than you simply because I've screwed up more than you. So please learn from my experience. I don't know more than you because I'm smarter than you. I know more than you because I was equally as dumb as you are right now at your age, right? Probably dumber for a lot of us. I will say I was dumber. But what's made it great is that I've had these experiences with two of my children who were grown and moved out, living on their own, great lives, great careers, making their own place in this world. That when they first became adults and when they were exiting their teenage years, they were very rebellious. And then they made a lot of really stupid mistakes against the advice of me and my wife. What was great about that happening is I got to point at them and look over to my younger children who were catching up, and I would say, "You see, I've told them this, I've told them that, I've told them this. They didn't believe me. They did this stuff instead. Now they are paying the price for it." When dad and mom say they've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and even have season passes, please believe us. Stop thinking you know everything. And the kids that were coming up behind them that are now at the exit of their teenage years, rolling into adulthood, they're going, "Oh, yeah, I remember when my older brothers screwed up bad. Yeah, mom and dad tried to tell them, but they didn't listen. But they got to see it objectively. They got to see me say it. They got to see my wife say it. They got to see their older brothers think it was absolutely ridiculous and they knew better. Well, times are different today. No, 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 no. Life is life, right? And then when they had to eat their entire turd sandwich, I encouraged them to take really big bites to get it over with quickly. Then they came back and then they fixed all of the things that they needed to fix, followed the advice that people who've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt had for them, and now they're doing great. And so now the younger kids got to witness all of that. So they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad that they screwed up so I could learn from their mistakes." Because that's what real wisdom is. It's not just learning from your mistakes, it's learning from the observed mistakes of others. And so that's why I'm glad I had so many and they're so close in age and spread out, because they get to see the people, their siblings who are heading into adulthood. They get to see where they screw up and how they have to fix it and what they did wrong. And I could say, "See, don't do what they did." And so now, like I said, the next one, the 17 and 18-year-old, getting ready to be an 18 and 19-year-old, they're exiting the teenage years, rolling into young adulthood. They saw how their two older siblings screwed up and they're like, "Yeah, we're not doing that." And they haven't. They avoided all of the things. Now, I'm not saying they're never going to make mistakes, but they did avoid the ones they saw their siblings screw up. So that's what has made me grateful for as many kids as I've had. It's like, you get to see real time actions and consequences rolling after each other, and you know how to avoid it.
Yeah, it's today what I see is two different types of parenting. One where the parents are like, "Well, we're going to let the kids chart their own course, make their own mistakes," which is ridiculous. They're kids, they need some guidance. The other one is uh, the parent will tell the kids what they should be doing, how they should be living, and the kids see it as optional. and the parents don't do anything about that. They just let them, again, live however they're going to live, make their own decisions. Whereas when I was a kid, when I was younger, I listened to my parents because they were my parents. I may have sometimes disagreed or not liked what they were saying, but I listened to them because I was taught that they are your parents, and right or wrong, good or bad, agree or disagree, you listen to them because they are your parents. The beautiful thing about that is once I got to be a young adult, I listened to them because I knew, what, I was a moron 10 years ago when I was fighting against them. Now I realize these people really know what they're talking about. They've lived in their life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, think about it. My parents, they lived through the Great Depression. They lived through World War II. I mean, my dad at 6 years old spent his summers picking beans at a farm, getting a penny a basket that he filled so that his family could eat that night. And so I'm thinking some guy who's picking beans for $1 a bushel at the age of 6, he might have something worth listening to. He might have some life experience that I could learn from. Um, and that's another thing, is that you don't see the respect for parents and grandparents the way you had it when I was young. I used to my grandfather lived right up the road from me. I used to go visit him all the time and just sit there and love hearing his stories. And man, did I learn a lot about life in at the turn of the last century. but but they were good lessons. They were things that really helped me out as I got older. Um, so it just, that's the thing. Today there is no, you don't have that same bond between parent and child like you used to. You don't have that same respect. Kids don't respect their parents. They don't respect their teachers. There's they're taught, you make your own choices, you make your own decisions, you live the way you want to live. And you know what? If you screw up, somebody else is going to fix it for you. Somebody else is going to take the responsibility for it,
Well,
probably
I
the
was going to
government,
say,
and that's the same thing.
growing up, you listen to your parents. You listen to your parents because they're your parents. The problem is now we can't have that because 99% of them out there, and that's definitely uh, an overestimation, but the majority of the ones out there are stupid parents when they're saying, "Well, I'm going to listen to my kid. I'm going to, what was it, free range parenting. I'm going to, oh, my 3-year-old. I saw an article the other day. My 3-year-old told me that uh, he was a girl. And so I decided right then, where he goes, I follow." Really? He's 3. I'm like, come on. Right. So now we can't even say, like, you listen to your parents. How about you listen to people that are smart? You listen to people that are normal. And I know nobody likes the normal that's so ableist or discriminative. Yeah, you know what? A lot of you weirdos out there aren't normal, and your kids shouldn't listen to you. They need to listen to normal people, right? And I know it sounds hateful, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like, the truth hurts,
Yeah.
but we're going to
Yeah.
run out of time, and I don't want to miss what you brought out of your basement. We're probably even going to have to skip the saint of the day today because it is what it is. But I will leave
We will see.
I'll leave you to lead into it with your final thoughts on this entire thing we've been talking about.
Oh, geez. Well, my final thought on this is, uh, this all, I think we started going downhill. Um, I guess about 30 years or so ago, when parents started using these excuses. They'd say, well, I drink in the house because I know they're going to drink. So I'd rather they do it safely and in my own home. I've got my daughter on birth control because I know she's going to have sex. And so I'd rather be there at the doctor and get the birth control for her. It's all these things that I know my child is going to behave poorly. So I'd rather they do it under my supervision, which is so insane to me. How about raising your kids right so they don't get involved in those things? Um, but speaking of that, um, you're familiar, of course, with the papal states that
Yes.
ended in about 1870, I believe it
Yes.
was. Yes,
Unfortunately.
and
Yes.
started in what, the 8th century, somewhere Yeah, 760 or whatever like that. And so they um, so actually, Pope Leo 13th was elected, I believe, in 1878, died in 1903. And the Papal States, like I said, disbanded in 1870. For those who don't know, Papal States, there was this intertwining of church and state, basically, and about half of Italy was under the control, if you will, of the Pope. Um, but once the Papal States disbanded, there was a lot of trouble because there was arguments over who owned what property, who owned what territories, how all of that was being distributed. And there was this belief that the Catholic Church, was really getting reamed by some of these new, like there was the Kingdom of Italy, there was all these different new places that were popping up. And so there was this order uh, of St. Peter that was created by Leo the 13th in 1878, right after he became Pope. And what it was a group of Catholic attorneys who would defend the Catholic Church and the positions of the Catholic Church and the property of the Catholic Church in all these different proceedings that were taking place, not only there in the former Papal States, but across the globe. So there was this organization of lawyers that were basically ordained to do their job by the Pope. And it started in 1878. It was disbanded by Pius the 11th in 1909, I believe, when it was determined that it was no longer necessary to have this group of about 10,000 attorneys that were working full time for the church. So, what I brought today was this rather huge document here, and this is kind of tough to see here, but you'll see it even has the papal stamp right there. And this is what you would have received if you were one of these attorneys who was representing the Vatican in all these various civil happenings that were going on along within the globe. It was all over Europe, all over Italy, where the church uh, was going up against various countries and governments trying to get protect their land and their owning the things that they own, the churches and things like that, different possessions that the church had. So there you go. So there was a group of about 10,000 attorneys that were working for about a 20-year period, specifically for the church and to protect its assets. And this is it was almost like a knighthood, basically. And this is what these guys would have received. They would have received this and a medal that goes along with it that looks exactly like that. And that's the picture I showed on Twitter earlier today. That's that was what their medal that they would wear looked like. So it's another cool little thing brought up from the basement just to share today.
Well, that's the only one you brought from the basement this week. I think everything else has been in your living room.
Well, yeah. This one I mentioned. This one is I said basement, but this one is actually in my office. So tomorrow we'll go back down to the basement. We haven't been there in a while.
All right, I got you. No, that's really cool. I kind of wish we still had papal states, you know. And a couple of weeks ago, I went up and I met Father Longenecker for a drink at one of the local breweries here, and he brought out this really cool thing talking about, you know, if you think about it, the Catholic Church is the kingdom of heaven on earth because they have a monarch, it's the Pope. They have a military, it's the Swiss Guard. They have their own territory, right, which is Vatican City, which is not in Italy. It it is its own sovereign nation. And if you think of all of the different dioceses and churches around the world, it's got embassies.
Mhm.
So it is a kingdom. The Catholic Church is a kingdom, and it's God's kingdom here on earth. So, it'd be awesome if we just decided, you know what we should do? We should start purchasing the land around all of the churches and just say, you know what, this is a papal state. And we'd start,
That'd be cool.
reinvigorating. Yes, that would be so cool. Reinvigorating the old tradition of having papal states. Yeah, it went out of fashion way too soon. We could definitely use another 2,000-3,000 years of them. It'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
But
Although,
all
I mean, they
right.
were honest, but yeah, they were only around for what, about 1,200 years, the papal states, but
Yeah,
it's still a good run.
we could have
Still
done
a
that
good
a few
run.
more times.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, another 1,200 or so year stints. Just a couple of them.
it would be okay. Just a couple.
Just a couple. But all right, we'll wrap this one up. I know just listening to this or watching this probably got a lot of you guys' blood boiling. I know it did mine. But hey, they're politicians in the state of Massachusetts. They're just politicians. They are not special. And they can be removed from their positions. It just requires people to stop thinking about doing something and going and doing something when election season comes around. Don't say it'd be great if they got voted out. You can petition them over and over. Matter of fact, you should all flood their phone lines and inboxes
I
until you become
always,
the most annoying group of people on the planet.
yeah. Well, I was saying, Jeff, like, there's something like, what are 60 million Catholics in the U.S.? Imagine if every Catholic voted the way their
72.
conscience tells them to vote. You could completely change the 72 million. Wow. But we could completely change the landscape of this country.
We could, and eventually we will. But real quick, I
like
hoping,
that attitude.
yeah. Now, there's a chance that tomorrow we will have the co-founder of Holy Habits on our show tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it if it's tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it if it's next week. But in the meantime, you can download the app, see how great it is yourself. It's on the App Store, it's on Google Play, and like everything, it's always great. If it's free, it's me. So download it, check it out. Check out the Holiness Hub. It's the best Catholic habit tracker out there. Till then, we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to sign off. Jeff, Ed's over there.
And
He's going to go vote for Biden today.
twice.
3 times after he eventually passes away in another 100 or so years.
Exactly.
But all right, we'll see you all tomorrow. See you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
God bless
Thanks
everybody.
for subscribing. Like and share. Matter of fact, if you watch this all the way to the end, I want you to click that retweet like button. I want you to quote tweet it and get as many people angry about this episode as you possibly can. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.